Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're showcasing a powerful climbing team in the Open Great League that does an amazing job at hard countering any Annihilate or Primeape that you will encounter. Now this team climbed from about 2520 elo to 2720 elo, so about 200 elo gained in only 4 sets. Now the team features Wigglytuff on the lead, Drifblim as the save switch, Shadow of course preferred if you have it, and Gastrodon as the closer, and it's a pretty simple team. Try and win lead with the Wigglytuff, or if you have to switch out, then try and win alignment with the Drifblim. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and oh my goodness, this team is in dire straits in the first match, leading into a Talonflame, whereas both the Gastrodon and the Wigglytuff get absolutely destroyed. We see the save switch into the Drifblim, Talonflame grabs a shield with a fly, out comes a Shadow Quagsire, Drifblim over farming quite significantly, and is gonna go for a bait. The Icy Wind bait is successful, Quagsire farming up a ton of energy. This could be a potential Stone Edge, so we are going to see a shield. Opponent baits with the Aqua Tail. This is not enough, unless I miscounted, this is only an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will not knock out, the Drifblim is able to survive. Drifblim is going to be firing off another Icy Wind. This Icy Wind will not knock out either, but the Astonish after will, leaving Drifblim on very low HP, but with an Icy Wind. Drifblim builds up to the Shadow Ball, going to be firing off an Icy Wind bait, grabbing the shield from the opponent, and lowering the Talonflame's attack is actually very important, because that means the Gastrodon is going to tank the Brave Bird a lot more comfortably. In comes the Brave Bird, that does still do big damage. In the back is Primeape, and Primeape is getting absolutely cooked. This poor Primeape just had nowhere to run throughout the entire battle. Close combat, not gonna KO. In comes the Talonflame, but it's all over for the opponent as Swift KOs the Talonflame. And despite the Core Breaker on the lead, this game is a win. Dream lead in the next match, Wigglytuff versus Primeape. They're staying in. They must have something else weak to charm in the back. Oh no, no, say it ain't so. That's a triple resisted close combat catch. What a savage catch. Opponent now brings in Annihilate, and now we know why they couldn't switch out. They were running ABA Ape. Their Annihilate just gets fully astonished farm down. What do they have in the back that Annihilate was their best answer? Oh, they had Toxapex. They just had zero Drifblim counter whatsoever. Shadow Ball is going to be shielded, but the Drifblim is not yet done. Firing off another Shadow Ball. We see a double shield from the opponent, but at this point, the writing's on the wall in this one. Nothing is stopping 2-shield Gastrodon, and the opponent will concede the match. Moving to the next match, leading Wigglytuff into Jumpluff, and it looks like this opponent is trying to hunt some Annihilate as well. Jumpluff, of course, does great into Annihilate, but this team does great into Jumpluff, as both Wigglytuff and the Drifblim are going to have very positive matchups. So the Energy Ball is going to connect. We actually see an Energy Ball debuff, so a bit of good luck for the opponent. Going to fire off the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to be shielded, and from here, I would expect that you're just always going to let the Wigglytuff go. Exactly. Opponent goes for an Aerial Ace. That's not going to cut it. And Wigglytuff, oh, just can't get to the move. But now in comes Drifblim. And Drifblim is more than happy to absorb debuffed moves and farm all the way down. Aerial Ace is going to land. Opponent gives up switch as they send in a Zoom Roll. They want to preserve the Jumpluff. And considering there's a Gastrodon in the back, a Jumpluff that's alive, not a particularly good thing. Shadow Ball is going to land. In comes the Gastrodon. Gastrodon farming up. Opponent went way over 100 energy there with the Azumarill. Play Rough is going to connect, and that's going to do quite a lot of damage. Gastrodon is just going to look for a 1-shield farm down, looking to exit with energy, because with energy, that Jumpluff is going to get KO'd. So now the opponent is in an awkward spot. What do they bring in? Do they bring in that low health Jumpluff? No, they send in the third, hoping for a blind body slam, but it's going to be the Earth Power. Earth Power connects, and there's a defense drop. Gastrodon farming up, waiting the turn, making sure there is no catch. A triple resisted Earth Power catch would be devastating. And Gastro continues the farm. There's an attempted switch out by the opponent into the Jumpluff. Jumpluff fires off an Aerial Ace. Drifblim does not care. There's another move by the Jumpluff, and this game is going to be finished by the Gastrodon. Gastrodon going for the triple resisted Mud Slap farm down and gets it. Exiting with the Earth Power. Earth Power is going to knock out that Dunsparce and secure the victory. Hopping into the next match, Wigglytuff into another Talonflame. Again, this team is completely core broken by the Talonflame. We're going to see a switch out into the Drifblim. Opponent ends up actually banking some energy before they bring in Drapion, and this is really not good. The opponent's so weak to Quagsire, but unfortunately no Quagsire to be found on this team. Going to commit the shield as the opponent will be firing off a Crunch. Crunch does actually get a defense drop, and that is some good luck for the opponent. Icy Wind into the Drapion. Drapion is going to shield. Switch Clock, just not up. Unable to save that Drifblim. Just gonna let it go, hoping for a bait, but there's no bait to be seen. In comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon is gonna get a farm down. Opponent now gonna bring in a regular Feraligatr, banking energy to switch into the Wigglytuff. In comes Talonflame. But this Talonflame is suddenly looking pretty vulnerable. It took those Astonishes earlier in the match, and now it's getting closer and closer to a range where a move from the Wigglytuff could KO. Wigglytuff looking for a debuff here with the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is gonna connect. That forces the opponent to throw, and this is going to set up farm for the Gastrodon. Can Gastrodon get the farm down here? The answer is yes. Gets 2 Mud Slaps, has a ton of energy, and is going for a bait. At this point, the opponent's win con is to try and call a bait, and they do just that, and that's going to complicate the math a little bit here. Gastrodon is going to no-shield. This is a regular Feraligatr. Hydro Cannon will not be enough to knock out, and now it's going to be a race. Gastrodon needs to make 2 more Body Slams before Feraligatr gets 2 more Hydro Cannons. It's going to be very, very close. The Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. Can they make the move? No, they cannot. This team has seen 2 Talonflame leads, and it's won both of them. Down goes Feraligatr, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, Wigglytuff into Shadow Pidgeot, and thank goodness this is on the lead and not in back. Shadow Pidgeot would absolutely destroy the back 2 Pokemon. Pidgeot fires off energy, and I can't blame Wigglytuff for shielding. Opponent goes for the Aerial Ace. We now see a switch out into a Shadow Quagsire. Wigglytuff banks a ton of energy and brings in the Gastrodon. Gastrodon farming up a ton. Unfortunately, Shadow Quagsire actually struggles quite a bit in this matchup, because even after all the mud shots, 2 Aqua Tails do not KO, and the Gastrodon can always just make it to 2 Body Slams. Gastrodon is going to be firing off that Body Slam right away, did throw on alignment there. Body Slam is going to get the Quagsire low, and then pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Pidgeot, had the Body Slam, but didn't throw it. That is unfortunate. Back in comes the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff has a ton of energy, and it's going to fire off the Icy Wind and grab a shield from the opponent. In the back is Gastrodon, and that's game over. As this poor opponent, they were trying to bait out the potential counter to Gastrodon, but Gastrodon and Quagsire's weaknesses are just so different, even though they do have identical typing. Whereas more often than not, the most common Pokemon to wall off Gastrodon is going to be Flyers. In this case, the opponent did actually end up having Water Pulse, but it's not going to matter. Back in comes the Pidgeot. The Pidgeot's going to now get hit with an Icy Wind. Pidgeot does get a full farm down, but 1 Charm coming through means this game will be over. Oh, it looks like there was actually a little bit of lag there. The Pidgeot survives on 1 HP, but the Charm did go through, so the game is still concluded. Hopping into the next match, Wigglytuff into Ariados. This is a disastrous lead, as this team is ABA weak. We're going to see a save switch in a Drifblim answered with Miltank, and this is an absolute disaster. Oh my goodness. This is about the worst case scenario possible. Miltank almost assuredly going to be running Thunderbolt, as Thunderbolt does allow Miltank to be a pretty nice core breaker. I stand corrected. There's an Ice Beam. Okay. All right. We're going to see an Undercharge. I do like the Undercharge because this way you're going to get a very nice farm with the Wigglytuff, and that's basically your hope, is just to absorb energy and then try and land a move on the Ariados and farm it down later. Oh, it's a double nuke Miltank, so they did have Thunderbolt after all. Okay. So they do actually have Ice Beam and Thunderbolt both. Opponent, they're probably bringing back in that Ariados. They're thinking about it, and they will bring back in the Ariados. Ariados now going to be hit with a Swift. Swift doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's all about just putting it into Mud Slap range. Gastrodon farming up. Opponent throws on alignment, and there's a Mud Slap for free. They go for a lunge bait, and in the back is Quagsire. Now this matchup is a lot better for Quagsire if the Gastrodon is debuffed. Gastrodon baiting with the debuff Body Slam and grabbing a shield, and that is absolutely massive. Quagsire returning fire with an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail not going to do a ton of damage. Gastrodon continuing to farm, and that's another free Mud Slap. The opponent giving a lot of free energy to the Gastrodon. There's a switch out into the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff Wigglytuff cannot make it to a charge move, forced to just no shield and trust in the Gastrodon to try and sweep. Gastrodon firing off a Body Slam at the Quagsire. Quagsire is going to commit the shield. Opponent switches out into the Ariados. Ariados has a tough call. Do they go for a Trailblaze and try and boost up the poison stings, or do they go for the lunge? They go for the lunge. They debuff, but the Gastrodon survives on 1 HP, and all those free mud slaps the opponent gave come back to bite them as Gastrodon is able to secure the win. Dream lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Pangoro. Opponent save switches into a Quagsire. Quagsire answered with Drifblim. Opponent gives a free Astonish, and my goodness, does Drifblim really enjoy that 10 extra base damage and 10 extra energy. Drifblim going to fire off an Icy Wind. Quagsire going to let this through, and Quagsire just unable to make its move. Back in comes Pangoro. Pangoro going to be debuffed with an Icy Wind. Icy Wind will do quite a lot of damage. Pangoro not the tankiest mon around. Pangoro firing off a Night Slash, and Night Slash even debuffed is going to hurt. Drifblim takes a ton of damage there. Opponent is going to play to the CMP tie, denying the energy from the Drifblim. Honestly, the opponent is just going to be spam switching into whatever they have in the back. In the back, it's a Drifblim. Oh no. So the opponent is running the Panda Drifblim core, which is a very good core as long as you don't see Wigglytuff. But it's seeing Wigglytuff. So unfortunately for this opponent, they have 2 shields, but this game is just going to be a loss as the Wigglytuff is just absolutely shredding. Wigglytuff, very comfortable no shield as this Icy Wind is debuffed. Oh my goodness, that does nothing. My goodness. Wigglytuff going to commit to a farm down. I'm just going to let this go because Gastrodon will be able to win this game. Drifblim is Gastrodon's worst nemesis, but it's just too low. In comes Pangoro. Pangoro can make a close combat, but Drifblim's never making a move, so this is a very safe shield for the Gastrodon. Gastrodon is going to get to Mud Slap down the Drifblim. A little bit of revenge for Gastrodon as it takes the win. There's a big problem on the lead in the next match, and its name is Alolan Sandslash. If this was the Shadow Claw variant, this would honestly be kind of fine for the Wigglytuff, but this season everyone's on Powder Snow, which means this is really, really bad. So you're kind of just forced to stay in here because you're ABA weak, and then try and get rid of it with the Gastrodon later on. Opponent getting low. We're going to see a snipe attempt with the Gastrodon. The opponent overfarms too much. They lose all their energy, and now in comes Primeape. Primeape does have enough for the close combat here. Gastrodon calls the bait. Close combat is going to inflict massive damage. There's a nice catch by the opponent as they're able to catch a Body Slam onto the Azumarill. And double Body Slam, not going to do a whole lot of damage here. So the opponent has preserved that Primeape, but now it's going to be Drifblim versus Azumarill. Catch is available as needed. Opponent just going to fire off the Ice Beam. Drifblim more than happy to commit shields. The Azumarill, I mean, these Astonishes add up. Even though this isn't even the Shadow going to go for an Icy Wind bait, even if they call it, it's fine. At this point, you just want to reduce the bubble damage. Opponent is going to farm up, and they're going to get hit with a Shadow Ball now. And this Shadow Ball is going to do quite a lot of damage, knocking out Azumarill. In comes the Wigglytuff. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a neutral lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Azumarill. The battle of the 2 fairy types. Wigglytuff will typically have to go down a shield to win this lead. It looks like the opponent actually started 1 turn late, so they might have lagged right at the start, which is a little bit unfortunate to see. But typically Wigglytuff can play it out as follows. Land the Swift, tank a move, shield a move, and farm all the way down. Opponent save switches into Typhlosion, immediately answered with the Gastrodon, and Gastrodon is going to resist the Blast Burn, but it sure does not look it as Typhlosion inflicts massive damage. Gastrodon very low, but does have an Earth Power available. Opponent sends in a Drifblim, and that's a very good Pokemon at completely invalidating Gastrodon energy. Earth Power not going to do much. In comes the Drifblim. Drifblim versus Drifblim, and we will see a shield and an attempted farm down. Opponent will go for the Icy Wind. They're going to switch out into their Azumarill, but their Azumarill is just going to get debuffed with Icy Wind, and they kind of have to shield it because they're rapidly running out of HP. Drifblim going to get hit with an Ice Beam, and we're just going to see a no shield now, and this should be a sweep for Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is going to fully commit to the farm down. The Azumarill is able to make the last second move, so Azumarill is going to force the final shield, but the Drifblim does not have the energy needed, and that game will be a win. Hopping into the final match, it's the same lead as last game. Wigglytuff into Azumarill, but this opponent safe switches into a Drapion, and Drapion is getting absolutely deleted by our good friend Gastrodon. Crunch is going to land. Gastrodon going to fire off the Body Slam to prevent a potential crunch from being thrown, but the opponent says no, they're willing to give up a shield in exchange for grabbing the first shield from the Gastrodon. Gastrodon is going to get a nice farm down opponent. I don't think got a debuff on either crunch, which is pretty good for the Gastro. In comes the Azumarill. Azumarill going to be met with an Earth Power. Earth Power will inflict some very, very solid damage here. The Earth Power is going to land. Azumarill looking for a farm down, but the Gastrodon hangs on. It's able to get to this Earth Power. That's going to get the Azumarill very low. Earth Power lands. It's a simultaneous switch out, and it's this team's nemesis, the Powder Snow Alolan Sandslash. Drifblim is going to shield. Drifblim going to build up to the Shadow Ball, and at this point, you kind of have to bait. It's uncomfortable, but you kind of have to because you just need to reduce the damage output, because this Alolan Sandslash is very, very scary into this team, and there's basically 1 HP left on the Gastro. The opponent does have like 100 energy stored on the Azumarill. Opponent is firing off their energy. Clock's up, so the opponent can go for the combo play. Just gonna click the Swift, anticipating the combo play. Swift KOs the Azumarill. All that energy gone. Sandslash gets charmed down, and that's a good game. All in all, I think this is a terrific climbing team, especially considering that the Annihilate Community Day just happened. So many people are going to be running Primeape and Annihilate, and this team realistically has no good matchups for either of those Pokemon. The closest to that is Gastrodon, and Gastrodon is incredibly strong neutrally, and versus the Drifblim and the Wigglytuff, they just get absolutely cooked. So if you are looking to make a last-second elo climb, I know leagues are rotating pretty soon, this team may be worth a shot, as even against bad leads, it shows that this team is able, with very careful energy management, to still overcome them. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.